Starting next month, if you want a roof over your head, you'll start paying rent. Maybe then you'll finally learn respect. The words cut into me like splinters of glass. Respect, as though the sleepless nights editing videos weren't evidence enough. Respect, as though chasing dreams meant laziness. Respect, as though love came stapled to an invoice. My throat burned, but I kept my expression steady. My silence roared louder than their accusations. Hello, I'm Serafino Lane. I'm 24 and I've carved out a fragile empire with borrowed laptops, coffee shop Wi-Fi, and a kind of grit you can't measure in paychecks. I craft campaigns. I weave memories into films. I chase visions most people are too afraid to see. But to them, I'm nothing more than a shadow lingering in their home. A burden. A weight they don't want to carry. Last week, Mom sneered. When will you finally grow up? Dad smirked over his drink. Dreamers don't pay bills. But silence sharpens, and I had been sharpening for months. That night, I opened my duffel bag with the precision of a surgeon. Hoodies folded like armor. My camera and hard drives tucked away like treasure. Grand's worn denim jacket, threadbare but brave, rested on top. Every item was a heartbeat. Every zip, a declaration. I'm leaving before they force me to crawl. Mom's shadow appeared in the doorway. Don't be dramatic. I'm not, I whispered. I'm being exact. Dad's voice drifted down the hall. Shut that door by midnight. I always meet deadlines, I answered without looking back. I set my house key on the dresser. It glimmered beneath the lamp like a coin on a grave. Outside, the night smelled of damp soil and unfinished stories. The street hummed low, as if waiting for me to finally choose myself. Behind me, the house sighed, swollen with contempt, pretending not to care. Ahead, darkness stretched, endless, untamed, alive. For the first time in years, I felt weightless, because dead weight doesn't stay behind. It moves forward, straight into the storm. The rain started as I reached the corner. Not heavy, just silver needles against my skin, as though the night wanted to baptize me before I stepped into something new. My duffel grew heavier block by block, straps biting into my shoulder, but my stride never broke. I didn't know where I was headed, only that I was leaving. Leaving the sneers, leaving dinners where silence was louder than laughter, leaving walls that pressed in every time I breathed. The bus stop at Pine and Alder flickered under a weak streetlight. A man in a soaked trench coat muttered to himself, tapping a rhythm against his thigh. I stood a few feet away, clutching my bag, heart racing like I'd just committed a crime. Maybe in their eyes I had, walking out before they pushed me, refusing to shrink. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Mom, don't be stupid. You'll come back once you realize you can't make it on your own. I stared at the screen, rain dripping from my lashes, doubt twisting inside me. Could I survive? Rent, groceries, bills, adult storms waiting to drown me whole. But then I remembered the sound of Dad's fork clinking against his plate when he called me useless. I remembered Mom's laughter when I told her I'd landed a client. Doubt lifted, vanishing like vapor. The bus pulled up with a hiss, its doors creaking wide. A wave of heat rolled out, laced with the scent of grease and worn upholstery. I stepped on, slid a handful of wrinkled bills into the slot, and took a seat near the rear. In the rain-streaked glass, my reflection stared back, pale, damp, but burning with defiance. As the streets smeared into color outside, I reached for my notebook, the one stuffed with stapled invoices, and turned to an empty page. My pen moved quickly. This isn't the finish line. This is the evidence. Behind me, the city breathed out. Ahead, the map was still blank. In that thin space between leaving and arriving, I swore to myself I would never again plead for respect from people blind to my value. The night bus carried me onward, humming like a quiet accomplice. The engine groaned as we rolled deeper into the city, shaking like some tired beast. At every stop, strangers spilled into the wet dark. I held my duffel close, the warmth of its fabric pressed to my chest, as if it could steady the storm inside me. By the time we reached the downtown terminal, the rain had thickened, pounding the ground in sheets. I stepped out, shoes splashing, neon signs bleeding into puddles like watercolors. The air reeked of fried food and diesel, a rough symphony of survival. I had no apartment waiting, no friend's couch to crash on, no tidy plan folded in my pocket, just a list of small clients and the grit in my bones. A diner glowed ahead, its flickering, open 24 hours sign buzzing in the storm. I slipped inside. The bell above the door announced me, though no one looked up. The place buzzed with weary truckers and college kids hunched over greasy meals. I slid into a corner booth, opened my laptop, and tethered my phone. The Wi-Fi crawled, but it worked. The glow lit my tired face as I answered overdue emails and chased invoices, pretending it was just another night grinding. But the truth pressed hard. I had no home, at least not tonight. A waitress with weary eyes set down a mug of coffee. "On the house," she said, noticing my silk jacket. "You look like you could use it." "Thanks," I whispered, cupping it as though it were the last warm thing left in the world. My phone buzzed again. A message from Dad. "So you think you're independent now? Don't come crawling back when you fail." The words should have gutted me. Instead, they burned away the last of my hesitation. Failure wasn't walking away. It was staying in a place where respect never existed. I stared at the rain running down the diner glass and felt the shift inside me. This wasn't banishment. This was freedom. And I knew with certainty the life I was about to build wouldn't just prove them wrong. It would make them regret ever declaring me dead. The storm outside wasn't breaking me. It was baptizing me. I lingered until night faded into gray morning. The downpour softened to a breeze. The waitress brought a refill, and a smile that asked nothing in return. I tucked her quiet kindness into my chest like a secret I'd saved forever. When daylight came choices, my bank balance was thin, enough for a cheap hotel. Maybe 2 weeks if I stretched every dollar. Instead, I chose to sleep. Every cent mattered now. Flinging my duffel over one shoulder, I walked to a co-working space I'd once only researched, but never dared to enter. The glass doors opened into the buzz of keyboards and medicines. My shoes squeaked across the polished floor as I handed in my last pass. The receptionist didn't care that my hair was still damp, or that my job was away. To her, I was nothing more than a minute. Claiming borrowed time in the city, I took a corner desk, looked over my laptop, and threw myself into a book. Like a hunger shark in a room, my emails shot out, like arrows, pitches, proposals, follow-ups. Too hesitant to send it. By midday, I submitted small editing gigs and a tentative deal for campaign. My pulse raced. Survival wasn't a distant wish anymore, it had proof on paper. Still, every keystroke carried the sting of betrayal. Mom's laugh when I shared my client news. Dad's scoff when I spoke about my goals. Their voices shadowed me, insisting I was nothing but a runaway with Wi-Fi. At 3, my phone buzzed with a call. I let it ring, until the screen dimmed. 10 minutes later, a message flashed. "Your room better not be empty. Where are you?" For the first time, I stayed silent. That silence belonged to me. I glanced around at the strangers grinding alongside me. Designers, coders, writers. None of them were mocking me. None were weighing me against a standard I never chose. They were simply building. And maybe, just maybe, this rented desk fit me better than the house I used to call home. The chorus of keyboards became my new soundtrack. I sank into it, hour after hour. The glow of my screen illuminating a self I'd only imagined before, focused, unbound, unafraid. By evening, exhaustion crept in, but beneath it was something sharper, progress. I packed up and stepped into the night air. The drizzle had lifted. Streets gleamed with mirrored neon. My duffel felt lighter, not because it carried less, but because I finally knew why I held it. The motel I found wasn't much, peeling walls, a flickering sign, but it was mine for the night. For walls, a lock, and silence no one could twist. Into shame, I set my bag down and collapsed on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling. This silence wasn't heavy. It was clean. My phone lit up on the nightstand, messages piling in. "Mom, why didn't you tell us you were leaving?" Dad, this is absurd. You'll regret it. And finally, come home before you embarrass yourself further. Embarrass myself? The words curled in my chest like smoke. What they never grasped was that I'd been ashamed. For years, sitting at their table, swallowing ridicule, letting their definition of success suffocate me. Leaving wasn't shame. It was defiance. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notebook and wrote down every client, every payment pending, every possibility. It wasn't much, but it was proof. Evidence I was building, piece by piece. Even if the bricks were digital files and late-night invoices, the motel clock ticked steadily, marking each second I stayed gone, each second I refused to break. And as I slipped into sleep, one thought held fast. One day, they'd call again, not with scorn, not with threats, but with fear. Fear of being left behind by the one they'd called dead weight, who had finally learned how to rise. That night, I didn't dream of home. I dreamed of freedom. And in the morning, the dream remained. Pale light filtered through the thin motel curtains as I sat up, muscles stiff, duffel resting at my feet like a silent guard. The air smelled of dust and bleach, but to me, it smelled like independence. I poured myself a cup from the old, beaten-up coffee maker in the corner, sipping slowly while scrolling through my inbox. Overnight, 2 of my proposals had been approved. They weren't big jobs, but the money would be enough to stretch me another week. Maybe 2, if I managed carefully. I got dressed quickly, pulled on Grand's worn denim jacket, and made my way back downtown. The co-working space greeted me with its quiet hum, rows of strangers moving like currents chasing their own futures. I settled into the same corner desk, my fingers flying across the keyboard. The work poured out of me like a river. I wasn't just scraping by, I was shaping something. But mid-afternoon, my phone lit up. It was Mom. Her tone was different this time, softer. "Where are you? Just talk to us." A second message followed. "We didn't mean it like that." I stared at the screen, my heartbeat steady. The words felt off, too neat, too carefully patched together, as if stitched to hide what lay underneath. My parents never apologized. Not when I was 12 and skipped meals so they wouldn't accuse me of being ungrateful. Not when they shredded me for choosing art instead of accounting. I didn't answer. I shut my phone and kept working, pouring everything into the project until the sun began to sink. On the walk back to the motel, I noticed something different. My chest felt lighter. Their voices, the criticism, the endless disappointment, had dulled, fading into echoes down a long corridor. I wasn't trapped in their house anymore, where every word hit like a hammer. I was here, building something of my own, brick by digital brick. Back in my room, I whispered a promise into the quiet. I'll never let them measure me again. One day, they'll measure themselves against me. The clock ticked steady, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. And for the first time, I smiled at the silence. The breakthrough came a week later. I was back at that same corner desk, sipping bitter coffee, when an email popped up with a subject line that stole my breath. Partnership proposal. A mid-sized marketing firm had discovered one of my campaigns online. They wanted me not as just another freelancer, but as a contracted creative. The pay wasn't fortune-making, but it was steady, professional, and triple what my parents ever believed I could earn. My hands flew to my mouth, trembling as tears stung my eyes. This wasn't luck. This was my work, my effort. That afternoon, with shaking hands and a pounding heart, I signed the contract. It felt like the universe finally leaned close and whispered, "See, you were right to walk away." That evening, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. 10 missed calls from Mom, 5 from Dad. Then one message arrived that made me go still. "We came home and your room is empty. What are you doing? Where are you?" I read the words over and over, feeling an odd mix of fury and grim satisfaction wash through me. Empty. Yes, empty, because I had chosen to fill my life somewhere else. Empty, because I stopped wasting my patience trying to hold up their house. The following morning, another message appeared. "Please come home. We can work this out." And just like that, the panic kicked in, not mine, but theirs. The balance had shifted. I wasn't the child pleading for scraps of approval anymore. They were the ones pleading now, realizing their grip had slipped away. I didn't respond. Instead, I threw myself into my first real project, staying awake past midnight in the small motel room, the lamp flickering across my notes and drafts. The steady hum of the old refrigerator kept me company, more constant than their voices had ever been. When I finally hit send on the completed file, I whispered into the dim room, "Dead weight doesn't rise." But I had. And deep down, I already knew Part 8 was on its way. The moment they would be forced to see me, not as the disappointment they sneered at, but as living proof of what happens when you finally walk away. 2 weeks later, the payment landed in my account. Not much by the world's measure, but enough to leave the motel behind and move into a tiny studio. Brick walls cracked, sunlight spilling through wide windows. It was mine. Every corner of it whispered one word: freedom. I hung Grant's old denim jacket by the door like a banner. My desk faced the window, where the city thrummed like an orchestra, each sound a reminder I had chosen right. I worked late into the nights, and for the first time, exhaustion felt like victory. Then came the call I had been waiting for. Not from a client, but from them. I let it ring, then pressed answer. Serafina. Mom's voice trembled, shaping my name like it might break in her mouth. We didn't realize you meant it. You've proved your point. Just come home. You don't have to do this alone. Dad's voice cut in, firmer, but with cracks at the edges. You're our daughter. This is absurd. Stop punishing us. I stared at the sunlight streaming across my desk, warm and golden. My voice came out even, steady. I'm not punishing you. I'm building myself. And you never wanted to see it until now. The silence on the line was sharp, broken only by Mom's shallow breathing. We were worried, she whispered weakly. You mocked me. You called me dead weight. My voice didn't waver. But look around. My room is empty because I filled my life. And I won't shrink myself to fit inside yours again. For once, they had no reply. Just silence. The same silence they had forced on me at countless dinners now turned back on them. I ended the call. Not out of anger. Not out of spite. Out of peace. I turned to my desk again, laptop glowing, projects unfolding, opportunities multiplying. The city outside pulsed with endless rhythm, and I breathed it in. Respect, I realized, is never handed over by those who don't know how to value it. It's carved, shaped. It's carried out the door and built, brick by brick, until it rises higher than their ceilings ever reached. And mine had only just begun.